When Luke Harrow rode into the parched valleys of the Sierra Mescalero Range, he wasn't searching for fortune, glory, or any kind of grand destiny. He was simply running from the ghosts of a past filled with debts, broken friendships, and a father whose shadow he had failed to step out of. The land, quiet and ancient, felt like judgment and forgiveness at the same time. Dust rose behind his horse's hooves as the midday sun glared overhead, baking the red earth into a kind of living memory. Rumor said the Apache people still held ceremonies in the hidden canyons that outsiders seldom found, and Luke respected that silence. He came only to survey the terrain for water, hoping to dig a well for a rancher who'd hired him cheaply just so he could survive another month. But as he chipped at the rock and soil with his pickaxe, the earth revealed something he never expected. Dark, thick, cold, and unmistakable. Oil. A stream of it bubbled like a message from the deep past. For a moment the world froze around him, a strange stillness taking hold, as if something unseen was watching. This wasn't rancher land. It wasn't government land. It was Apache land, sacred, inherited, defended, and never for sale. As Luke stared at the slow bleed of black treasure, his mind scrambled through thoughts. He could claim it, exploit it, sell the information, strike deals, climb out of his ruined life in a matter of months. But the silence around him felt like a warning. And then he heard voices. Apache riders emerged from the canyon, their faces solemn, painted in traditional patterns of red and white. The leader, a tall man named Nantan Grey Wolf, regarded him not with anger, but with an ancient patience. "What you found," Nantan said quietly, "does not belong to you, but what you choose next will decide who you become." Luke swallowed hard. He thought of his father, greedy, ruthless, dead because of the choices he made. He thought of the lives ruined by men who couldn't resist the lure of wealth. The oil at his feet felt like a test he hadn't been ready for, so he stepped back, put down his tools, and said, "I didn't see anything." That moment changed something deeply in the Apache man. Nantan looked at him for a long time as though measuring the weight of his soul. "You walk away," he said, "with nothing in your pockets but something in your spirit." Luke nodded, mounted his horse, and rode off, leaving the oil behind, leaving his chance at riches buried beneath sacred ground. Over the following years he drifted, working small jobs, fixing fences, training horses, and sending whatever money he could to the people he still owed. No fame, no fortune, just survival. Sometimes at night he thought about that oil well and wondered if the tribe ever used it, if they were flourishing, if they remembered him at all. But 7 long years passed and no sign of them ever crossed his path. Until one cold dawn, as frost clung to the edges of his cabin windows, he heard hooves, many hooves, circling his cabin. War paint riders, Apache riders, the same silent authority. And the moment he stepped outside, the world he thought he'd left behind came roaring back in a way he could never have predicted. The morning air stung with winter sharpness as Luke pushed open the cabin door, his heartbeat thudding against his ribs like a warning drum. Outside, a ring of Apache riders formed a perfect circle around his small cabin, faces marked with ceremonial paint, expressions unreadable beneath feathered bands, and cold breath rising into the air. At their center sat Nantan Grey Wolf, older now, but still holding that powerful calm Luke remembered from the canyon 7 years ago. For a heartbeat, Luke thought they'd come to accuse him of something, or perhaps to reclaim some ancient debt he didn't understand. But Nantan dismounted, walked toward him, and pressed a hand to Luke's shoulder with a gravity that felt almost royal. "The man who walks away from easy fortune," Nantan said, "walks toward a greater one." Confused, Luke stepped back as a second rider brought forth a long wooden crate, wrapped in woven blankets marked with Apache symbols of honor and remembrance. When they opened it, Luke staggered. Inside lay documents, maps, survey reports, and a deed. Nantan explained that after Luke left the oil untouched, the tribe spent years studying it, protecting the land, and building a cooperative system that allowed them to extract the resource responsibly, sustainably, and completely on their own terms, without government exploitation, without corporate invasion, without betrayal. They became stronger, wealthier, self-sufficient. And when elders discussed how this legacy had even been possible, one name always returned: Luke Harrow, the outsider who chose integrity over greed. Because of that, the tribe had decided to honor him, not with money alone, but with partnership, land protection, and a lifelong bond. Luke felt overwhelmed. He wasn't a hero, he wasn't even a good man by his own measure, just someone tired of the damage greed caused. But the Apache saw something else. Nantan told him they had watched him over the years from a distance, not to spy, but to ensure the man they intended to honor was still the man with a good spirit. "You think you walked away," Nantan said. "But we were walking toward you." Then came the most shocking part. The deed in the crate transferred. A portion of the oil field revenue to Luke, not because he discovered it, but because he respected it. A gift beyond anything he'd imagined. Enough to erase every debt. Enough to build a life he never thought he deserved. Enough to redeem a family legacy stained by greed. Luke fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the weight of gratitude. He had spent years believing that walking away meant throwing away his last chance at a better life, yet that single act of integrity returned, 7 years later, in a way that felt almost miraculous. The Apache riders formed a circle again, this time not in warning but in salute, raising their hands in a gesture of unity. Nantan told Luke that from this day forward, he had a place among them, a friend, a guardian of the land, and a man whose name would be carved into their story. As the riders departed, leaving a trail of hoofprints in the frost, Luke stood outside his cabin in stunned silence. The horizon glowed with the first rays of sunrise, and for the first time in years, he felt something powerful rising within him. Hope. He turned toward his cabin, knowing his life had changed forever, not because he chased wealth, but because he respected something sacred. And in that moment, he knew exactly what message he wanted to share with anyone who ever heard his story. If you want to hear more powerful, emotional Wild West stories like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps these legends alive.